lesson by deciding to not put my phone in focus before I go live. I get a call from Naugatuck. Who knows who could that be, who that could be. But the recording's over now, so I have to turn it back on. This is a life situation. It's not a big deal. You just turn the recording back on. You go into CapCut afterwards. You splice together 2 videos. You put it up on the internet. It's not a big deal. It's the fact that I'm learning. You see? When you get enough correction and you see enough undesirable situations, then you learn to be more cognizant of what is required in order to prevent these situations through basic actions. And in this case, it's I put my phone in focus, no more phone calls come in, the recording continues uninterrupted, I finish the recording, I don't shut off the phone, because if I do shut off the phone, then the recording is lost. I had that happen once. I learned very quickly that I don't want to lose 3 hours of beautiful chat coming in from people. I want that to be preserved. So I make very good attention. I put a lot of attention towards not shutting off the phone and making sure I get it plugged in the moment this recording is completed. Because we'll be anywhere between 5 and 10% battery. It's an exciting moment. It's very exciting. So if I leave it in focus mode, right, and I don't take it out after I end the recording, then I don't receive the phone calls from my children when they call. That's not good. I want to catch every single phone call from my children, because no matter how many times I ask them to tell me what time they're going to call, they won't, because they're kids. They're not going to listen to me in that way. It's just not as important as just calling when they feel spontaneously like they want to reach their dad, and I want them to be able to reach me at any moment in time. So that means I have to take the focus off, but in the beginning of this recording, I have to put it back on, because people are going to call this phone, and the only time they call is when I'm live. That's the truth. I don't get any phone calls except when I'm live on TikTok. And I could say these are forces that are outside of me trying to troll me or just annoy me in general. I could blame the world for all of these woes, which are really nothing. I mean, it's a complaint that's dumb, you know. But all of these things are actually manifestations of my own thoughts. Some form of unwinding is occurring the more that I can recognize that. The more I don't, the more I perseverate and talk about it and complain about it, the more I don't get the point, and it continues. That's it. Serta says, maybe it's just you getting... Maybe it's just you getting attention. Could be right. It's a story, though. Something's out there. It's not a squirrel. It's very quiet today. I mean, still, aside from the prop plane up above us. Very still. Aside from maybe the robins. There are no woodpeckers, no chickadees. I spoke too soon. There's maybe a downy out there, but it's in the far distance. So yeah, the phone call comes in because here's what I can find. The silver lining that I find from the interruption of the recording today is, what if it was a moment where I really couldn't have it be interrupted and I don't have this training, right? Come into focus mode, go out of focus mode. What happens then? Then it's likely I would lose something in like a real moment of need to have it preserved. So in a way, it is, of course, giving me a tip. Be this way. Make sure that you're constantly checking whether you're in focus mode during your recording prior to. So it's focus, then record, then TikTok, and then you start talking. Come out, don't shut the phone off, but make sure the recording's stopped, or else people are going to hear you talking to yourself in your house. That's not what you want. You want to plug it in, make sure you get power. The screen recording will do its processing, And then you put it in focus mode, off focus mode. Then the phone calls from your children can come in at any moment in time, and you hear them. Because for me, the phone call from my children is the priority. Though I love coming here into the woods and I love giving these discourses. They're wonderful. And I love all of you. The narrative that I carry with me as William Vincent Carleton has great attachments to wanting to have an established, strong, healthy relationship with my children. It's a very strong narrative, and it's very motivational for me. It is why I go live. Because I believe that the service in some way holds within it the key or the means and the way to salvation, so long as I keep loving and serving by helping people to come into their power. I know that this serves in my unity with my children, because it's a form of service that meets the requirement for wish fulfillment. If I'm giving people freedom, I'm giving people a high form of love. As long as I'm doing that, I'm meeting the requirement for a return on investment, which does not mean anyone needs to give anything. It's just going to come. It is here. By law, it must arrive. So my faith is strengthened in that. Lisa Fashionista says, hello. Dropping the 111, nice. Lots of seeds. Vicky says, beautiful morning to you. Right back at you. Thanks, Vicky. Some comments in this live are filtered to protect the community's experience. Of course, this was done against our consent, but I can understand because it's TikTok. Zerta says, maybe it is just you getting attention. Yeah, that's it. I'm with you, Zerta. Thank you. Let's see. She's Bulletproof says, what is the key element to maintaining and walking consistent peace and surrender? Surrender is the key, and the sanctuary is the imagination, and we will get through this. It's the practice we do every day. Vicky says, I've used the birthday cake, and wow, have I changed in my responses. Vicky, this is amazing. Second comment coming in about the birthday cake technique, which I actually took from someone on the internet. I forget who it was. It was a TED Talk, I think. Some incredible woman, very intelligent, explained how to reset the nervous system. And it was by imagining this. Before, I was just using the breath, but this really gives everyone a focus, because most of us, I mean, not all of us, but most have had a birthday with recognition in the form of a cake where we've blown out the candles. This is something that most people can relate to as an impression. And if you don't have that, you can always go watch Blade Runner 2049, and you can see it happen in a virtual realm. And then you can say, okay, I could just go right to that scene in Blade Runner. And then it works really well. Resets the nervous system. Now you can become aware of your breath, start monitoring your in-breath and your out-breath. And as you're doing this, you're still understanding what I'm saying. That's what's really cool about it. Time goes away. You fall into a state of being. The words that I'm saying still register, and they still make sense while you're monitoring your breath. You're taking in the information. And the reason for this is a few-fold, but the big one is when we are excitable, in a state of activation, which could also be called fight or flight, it's essentially when the body gives us a reminder that the pain is active, because it's had it wound up over years, we're effectively saying no to the eternal now. And the way that we say no is very clever. I'll talk to you about the walking cane. Sure, Musak, just a sec. I'll show you. Here, take a look. Take a look. Here's where I hold it most. You can see it's worn. Hasn't been stained, it's just stained with the oils from my hands. It's a good friend. This one's lasted over a year. The last one I had was really sentimental and it broke. I was chopping away at some overgrowth and I hit it against a large block of wood and it snapped. And I learned a lesson in that too. It was no need to move so quickly and so harshly. because it leads to the breaking of things that are sentimental and valuable. This was a good reminder to find stillness before any sort of action that requires precision. So, Vicky says, appreciate your time here. I take notes. Good, Vicky. You should. If it helps to impress your subconscious, that's the best. So the key element to surrender is this question coming from She's Bulletproof. Let's talk about what surrender is. Let's define it. I know I just went on a tangent, but that's okay. We'll come back and it'll all make sense in time. And this recording will be available to you as well so that you can pause and digest. But really the idea is, as long as you are present, as long as you come into your awareness of aliveness, and a great easy way is to use the birthday cake technique. Imagine yourself blowing out the candles and then monitoring your breath subsequently or at the same time, whatever it is. It gives the mind enough of a task to where your brain can start to fall into a synchronistic state of vibration. And once it's in sync, it knows that there isn't any imminent threat going on with the body. And that's really what you want to get it to. There's no imminent threat. But because most of our battles are emotional and in the mind, simply because we have these systems embedded in us from the past, whereas the sympathetic nervous system used to be very valuable because it would help us to survive. It gives us explosive reaction times, and we also get adrenaline rushes. We get inflammation of our organs in order to protect from blows that would come in a moment of fight or flight. We get an explosive amount of energy, and it's designed for us to survive situations that are perilous. Now, we're no longer in that situation because we live in a civilization, and this civilization now has brought the war to the mind. So we still have the systems that are for fight or flight. They're not as much a priority as they used to be, but they're still very embedded in our body, and it's the first part of the brain that becomes active is the central nucleus of the amygdala, which is responsible for our fear centers. So the fear center is very reptilian, which means it's early on developed. And the last thing to have been developed in the brain is the frontal cortex, or the cortex itself, the PFC. That is the last area that gets accessed. So if you think of it as it's the most valuable, it's also the most evolved area of the brain. However, it's the last to have any say in the matter. Therefore, you need to give yourself the reminder that you are calm so that the inflammation goes down, so that you're not protecting yourself from any sudden blows, so that your cells can relax and the constriction of your blood can relax as well. And the way we do this is through epigenetics. We have to give the situation of calm to the cells by imagining ourselves as calm. And it's easier said than done, so we have to give our mind a little trick. And the trick is we step into the imagination, we see a very beautiful birthday cake before us, we take a deep inhale, start to give awareness to the breath that it's happening, and then we blow out these candles. And from there you have a reset. The parasympathetic nervous system is the reset. This is telling you that you are calm. It releases antagonists in the body, whereas dopamine is an agonist. You get something like acetylcholine. And what acetylcholine does is it allows you to be receptive to learning, receptive to calm. Oxytocin is more easily produced. You find yourself in a state where you can just be, and you're receiving downloads that are coming in from another individual who is equally as calm and also receiving downloads. One is giving, the other is receiving. Receiving and giving gives you a coherence, and it gives you a magnetic charge. So as one is giving from source, the other is receiving from source, it gives you a magnetic charge. Now when you go into your imagination, all 28 of us, we use our imagination in different ways because we all have our own unique kingdom there, and we all have our own unique wants and desires. So we step into the imagination beyond the birthday cake, we start adding things or removing things. You can get the cake out of the way if you want. Go right to your beach. The cake's a nice way. It's like the key in the ignition, but you don't have to pay attention to it then. You know the job is done, so you can start adding things that you desire. And you're adding them as if you're there receiving them. That's how you add them. You add them by receiving them. So you pray by seeing from the end. This is what Neville Goddard talks about a lot. You want to see as if you're looking at your end credits, where all the things that you desire are presented to you in the now. This is how you ask for things in truth. And so how do we normally ask for things in truth if this is how you really ask for things? This is where we can get to the real heart of the matter when it comes to manifestation, when it comes to our issues, when it comes to things that are routine, when it comes to any sort of habit or personality that we've developed. We start to look at, okay, how are we using this imagination, since it is the area where we handle all the blueprints and all of the seeds and all of their planting, where we manage our Garden of Eden. How are we really using this? And the answer is we're using it unconsciously. We're using it in a way where we are constructing time. In most instances, we are entertaining something that's already occurred, i.e. the past. So we have to use the imagination to construct that time frame, that construct of time, and then we step into it and we entertain it as if we're there, as if we're actually living it again. And beyond doing that, we also go there without any purpose or any reason other than it's comfortable and familiar. Beyond that, we keep reliving it, and in most instances, it is in some way traumatic or painful. So we develop an addiction to that fix. The fix is a change of consciousness. However, it is mismanaged because we're using our aliveness, cutting off that source in order for it to dedicate itself entirely to the creation of time. And that creation of time is illusion. So everything that we've ever labeled, everything that we've ever built, our ego itself actually is illusion, and it's built on this premise that we've used God's infinite intelligence to create moments of time, constructs, life situations, definitions, pages within the book of pages that is our life. But in truth, we're constructing it, not realizing that we're doing it, and we then believe that this story is one that is imposed upon us, that we have no say over it, whether it's needs to change, we have no say, or whether it's been built by something, we feel that we are totally separate from that, thus thrust upon it and subjected to it. Therefore, when we go back and entertain it, we're entertaining it because it's part of our personality. It's what we believe we are. We believe we're our name. We believe that we're our collection of life experiences. We believe that we are our education and indoctrination from our parents, our schools, whatever educational systems, our friends, our family, our lovers. Every life situation is part of the indoctrination process. We believe this to be everything that we are, forgetting and overlooking or just completely being oblivious to the idea that it's being fed by something superior than us as identity. This is called consciousness. Consciousness is that which feeds you a source of aliveness. There's not a single person who isn't alive right now watching. You can pretend, you can say, I'm not alive, I've never been alive, I've never been here, and no matter what you say, I disagree with you. Okay, no matter what I say, you are given power in aliveness to disagree with me. It's no different than agreeing with me. There's still the same source powering you to either agree or disagree. And it's not my place to decide whether that is good or bad, nor try to force you into understanding this. You either get it and you become free and you take ownership over this identity that was thrust upon you by society, or you don't and you resist this and you give all of your power to the phantom that you created for yourself. I think that's pretty selfish. I think it's dumb. I think it leads to people's sickness more than health. I don't think it gives any solutions, and I think it perpetuates pain and suffering. So I come here every single day to explain this to people because I don't want that for you, selfishly. But then again, I can't actually trespass with you or upon you in any way to convince you otherwise if that's your narrative. And I should also be okay with it. Why? Because it's your own damn kingdom. It's your own kingdom. It's not my kingdom. My kingdom is I am perfect health. My kingdom is I am wealthy. I'm divinely prospered. To many people, that's very offensive. You know, in my kingdom, I am totally wish fulfilled. I have the most beautiful relationship in my kingdom of heaven. I'm right with my children right now. Many people would be very upset with that. If I went to a psychiatrist and I explained to them my whole process of where I believe myself to be in the imagination, they're going to say, that's disassociation. That seems like a psychological break. It comes from PTSD that came from these incidents in your life. I see some borderline personality disorder. I see narcissism because you're only talking about yourself. You're also kind of showing that you are pretending to be someone who you really aren't, and that you believe this is a source of your reality. So you don't say these things to a psychiatrist, because by saying these things to a psychiatrist, by saying that I'm observing my aliveness and that I have a construct that was agreed upon to build into my life that is William Vincent Carlton, if you were to say that to a psychiatrist and they were to believe you and trust that what you're saying is true, they would be without a license, they would be without their job, and they certainly wouldn't have any more clients. They'd lose all their clients. And so it's the same issue that goes with the healthcare system in general. If you don't have problems that are identifiable, if you cannot make a story that is somewhat permanent, that can't be overcome by anything other than you have to deal with it or mask it with the following drugs and this scheduled routine meeting with me. You know, if you don't do these things, then you're never going to have any relief and you're only going to worsen. This is what's told to you. And what it does is it's just a great pitch to hook anybody in to be a permanent client for the rest of life, while also using your aliveness erroneously to destroy yourself. It's pretty sad, but it is the standard of therapy. It's not about how can we sit down and work through these things. It's not even for, I love the therapists who even say, you know, we will get through these things. I will give you a tool belt. I will give you all the tools that you need. I will give you your salvation. That's not even it. No one gives you your salvation. You start there. You are creating your reality through your thoughts. Let's start there. No one is giving you your salvation but you. But what do most people do when they go to the office, when they meet with their counselor? They're going there to talk about their problems. They're going there to gossip. They're going there to go into the past and narrate it in a way that's never quite been narrated before. You can embellish upon it. You can add a lot of details that actually never occurred. And that therapist is going to buy it all. And if they buy it enough, they're going to give you something that will allow you to pop it in your mouth and shut down your consciousness for a certain amount of time. And you're going to call that relief. That's it. When in effect, it's just addiction to substances. But to each their own. Once again, I'm not judging so much as I'm explaining the objective behavior that comes. When we become the victim, we're only seeking ways to perpetuate it because we believe it's all we are. Just thrust upon this world rather than the creators of it. There's not a single person who can make me believe that they are less than me or anyone else as divine beings. And the premise that I use is very simple and it's scientific. We all came into this world the same way. Sperm and egg joined, created a zygote that is greater than the sum of its parts. From that zygote came every cell in the body. We've now accumulated into trillions of cells. Each and every one holds the infinite intelligence of a superior presence, an aliveness, a generative principle. Each and every one of us is also granted the imagination, which gives us an area that knows no bounds, can be recreated in any way we want instantaneously without delay. And we can also ignore it entirely and use it erroneously for the construction of time, and it is our choice because it is our kingdom. If we want a poor kingdom, we can have a poor, suffering kingdom. It's easy enough as making it thrive. And it is each and every human being's personal decision, however they want this to turn out. So that's why I'm here, to explain to you that every time you breathe, you're spending currency on a life situation. You don't want to have control over that. You don't want to have the plan. You don't want to undo these things. You feel way too much guilt. You feel way too much pain. It just sucks. And you want to know the way out? It's called see the birthday cake before you, blow out the candles, monitor your breath, and live free as wish fulfilled now. Go into the imagination like a child. Don't tell anyone about it because they're going to mock the shit out of you. For putting your head in the sand and cotton in your ears, they're going to mock you. They're going to say you have a wild imagination to believe that you are actually in a good place right now. All I see around you is misery. Do not tell anyone about this place. They're not fit for your kingdom right now. Only you are. And once you start to see proof of its construction, its manifestation before you, then you share your kingdom and all of its spoils with anyone whom you decide to share it with. And that's your personal choice. But you do it only when it's manifest. Before you do it, it's like telling people to come into your garden before you have anything but saplings and just play soccer on it, or football with cleats, or rugby. Tear it up. And people are going to come in and they're going to tear apart all of that hard work that you just did. All of those seedlings that were finally starting to show growth are going to be torn apart. And they're going to say, I don't see anything here. What, you're upset about this grass being ruined? What are you talking about? There wasn't anything to begin with. You keep talking like there's something here. You keep talking like there's something here that's of value. Like you've always done. You've always been that way. When does this ever change? Why don't you show me some proof next time, pal? And this is simply your ego going, okay, I can get this person now. If they tell me about all these details that are being prayed for in secret by believing they are real, they tell me any of these things before they happen, that's just another story of doubt that can be introduced to you. Another story of regret that you went too far, you tried too hard, you did too much, and you should just lay back and not do a thing and listen to the ego try to tell you what to do. This is why you pray to the Lord in secret. The Lord is the law of the land. The law of the land is when you use your imagination, you are planting seeds in your garden. So that's your salvation. It's not, I need to have the plan. I need to know the roadmap. I need to know which moves to do today. What are the ingredients that I need to do? What's the specific mantra that I need to use in order for this to work? Because otherwise, if I don't have that, I'm just going to flip out. It's not going to work for me. I've tried everything and nothing works. I need to know the thing that works. Well, why don't we start with what we eat the most? It's not birthday cake, though it might be for some in their imagination. It's actually your breath. That which feeds you life. Spiritus in Latin means the breath. So why don't we pay some attention to it? And what you will find is this very interesting factoid that is also consistent with all human beings. If you breathe less than 12 times per minute in a cycle of breathing in and breathing out, you do that less than 12 times in a minute, your parasympathetic nervous system has no choice but to be active, which means you activate the learning centers of your brain and your body follows suit. So that means you give yourself about, I don't know, what does it work out to be, folks? How many seconds per cycle? Less than 6 seconds per cycle. Can you do 2 seconds in, 2 seconds hold, and 2 seconds out? If you can do that, then your parasympathetic nervous system is going to be activated whether you want it to or not. You're going to find yourself relaxed. That's 2. That's 2 held. That's 2 out. Do that for a minute. Your parasympathetic nervous system will have no choice but to tell your body you are relaxed. Do it through the nostrils, please. It's compressed, filtered air that is warmed. And if you breathe through your nose, you are also inviting nitrogen to be converted into nitric oxide through your nostrils. There's special cells that manage that for you. Breathe through your mouth and you're inviting bacteria into your mouth. You're effectively introducing all of this cold oxygen in the form of a vacuum, which will throw off the biome of your mouth. If anyone wants to know why you have halitosis and bad breath, it's because you're breathing through your mouth. There's not a single person on this planet who has halitosis who breathes nasally. Not a single person. It's impossible. The biome in your mouth does not have the oxygen it needs to go wild. If you're breathing through the mouth, it's the easiest way to get halitosis. You wake up in the morning, you find drool coming down the side of your mouth. It smells like shit. because it literally is breaking down. It's the first stage of biodegrading food. It's the first stage of digestion. You breathe through your nose during the day, you're going to teach your mouth that it is there for eating, not breathing. And here I am talking a lot, I know. But I catch myself often breathing through the nose, at least with the in-breath, so I can compensate. I'm also moving. If I'm moving and walking hills, I'm going to have excess carbon dioxide, and that's going to come out of the mouth. I'm going to exhale that out. Okay? I use up my reserves of glucose. From there, it's going to start going into my adipose tissue to create more currency of life. Adipose tissue is your fat tissue. So the fat tissue is a reserve. It's like a federal reserve. Taps into it, but it takes a little longer. In fact, it takes a lot longer for you to get the money out of that reserve because you got to go to the bank and you've got to go through all this paperwork. You got to explain why you need to get this extra energy. It's because I'm walking through the woods. I used up all my reserves in my checking account today. I used all my glucose. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. There's a Ho'oponopono. Now give me my energy. Hold on a second. We still have to get this through all the channels. That's the electron transport chain saying to you, it's not as efficient as when you have reserves of glucose and oxygen to create currency for you. The fat seems to want to hold on to it. The fat is the fat of the land. It's like, hold on a second. What do they want this money for? I just want to stay put. What do you want this money for? Oh, man, he's in ketosis. We got to let him go. We got to let him go. He's in ketosis, man. Can't do anything about it now. There's rules. We got, hierarchy. When he's in ketosis right now, we got to make all this available energy for him, plus the benefits that he would normally get if he had glucose. We got to do it. We have no choice. It's the law. Kylie MM is here. Hey, Brandon, what's up, man? Let's catch up with people. Kylie says, man, I'm so happy I found you. Your wisdom is helping me in mind-blowing ways. Thank you. Kylie, you're awesome. Thank you. Thanks for that, Kylie. Bunny Confetti followed. Thanks. Vicky says, I'm building my foundation before I can finish construction. Then I will have guests. That's a beautiful way to say it. You're on a construction site right now, Vicky. The nice part is you've got all the blueprints, you've got all the plans, and you're in your mind, the imagination, just constantly creating and living from the end. You're in your playground. It's a construction site, and it's a playground. And you're having a great time, always, because it's God's gift to you. And God is you, as this infinite intelligence. Trish King says, so basically we are more than our trauma. 100%, Trish. We're also more than our exhilarating moments. We're more than our pleasure. We're more than our sensations. We are the source that provides us the aliveness. And as long as you understand that you are the source that provides you the aliveness as consciousness in conjunction with the infinite imagination, you will constantly be communing with God in the present moment, regardless of what the task is. And even when you fall into, like I do, fall into a performance and start complaining about things, let's say a video gets cut off or whatever it is, it's so fast when we come back into being, because the feeling of being is so much better than being lost and feeling at odds with things, with difficulty. It doesn't have to be that way. Of course, there can be presented issues, things that are undesirable. That's going to happen all the time. But what it is we're not surrendering to that thing outside of ourselves. Instead, we're surrendering our aliveness. Thank you, James, for that hat. I haven't seen one of those in howdy, a long time. We are surrendering instead to the source that has given us life enough to create a life situation. So we have a life situation that's undesirable. We have one that's desirable. We're still surrendering to the source that feeds it. Whether it's good or bad, it covers us in all areas, okay? This is where you get the most profound downloads. When you're having a beautiful, stress-free moment, it's even more important to come alive and observe without defining or judging. Your body feels so much bliss in a new way, and it gets these huge upgrades because of it. So it works with both desirable and undesirable situations to just surrender as much as you can, by going into the imagination, which is your kingdom, and playing as if you're there. Your cells will know no difference. She's Bulletproof says, damn truth. Tyler says, you have lighthearted, enlightened tone comparable to Alan Watts. Alan Watts has influenced me, Tyler, with my inflections, with the way that I deliver, just like Dave Matthews Band influenced me in my guitar playing, John Mayer in my lead guitar playing, Fleetwood Mac in my song structures. Alan Watts is part of my delivery because we become what we eat. That's why I said to people, if breath is the thing we consume the most in a given day, let's give some love and attention to it. Let's recognize it for what it is. Our Holy Spirit keeps us whole, gives us an in-breath, gives us the sustaining, and it gives us the out-breath. It is whole. It's the Holy Spirit. Spirit is breath in Latin. Kimberly McQueen, thanks for following. And Stephanie's here. Welcome, Stephanie. Grand Rising. Grand Rising to you. Nice to see you again. Vicky says, I used the technique also during a 2-day fast. Was very calming. Vicky, this is wonderful news. Fasting is a very powerful way to rise your vibration to a place of healing through sacrifice. Bimar says, love this visual with the breath. Thank you. I can't take credit for these things, nor can I take credit for whatever monologue comes through as clear and concise. These are coming from you as your aliveness being open to the channel. You're tuning in your radio station to the channel that gives you downloads that are for your benefit. I'm just serving as an instrument that you are playing through. So just know that this is all you, and I do appreciate the thanks, and I do appreciate the gratitude and all the love that comes through. Understanding that I too am surrendering to you in order to receive this feedback in truth. We are working together in co-creation, and I love that. Okay, Bimar, thanks for following. Brandon says, Grand Rising, William and family. Grand Rising to you, Brandon. Chrissy followed. Thanks, Chrissy. And I got back. That was the last time I remember reading a message was with Vicky saying, appreciate your time. I take notes. Great. Good. It's a free class. Tiger, thanks for following. Cass, thanks for the heart me. Vicky, thanks for the heart me. Alan Smith, thanks for the follow. James, once again, thanks for the hat and mustache. Yeehaw. Sovereign Slade sending over a lightning bolt. Great to see you, Slade. Neighbor says, thinking of buying some XRP. Let's talk about it. By the way, as much as it may seem that I'm giving people advice all the time, as I talk about cryptocurrency now, it's no different than anything else. It is a download that you are generating for yourself. If it's something you desire, stick with it. Make it part of your scheme, or your scene, rather, your schematic. Oh my, there's the first mosquito of the season. I see it flying away from me, saying, I don't want to sting that guy. He takes neem. He has neem in his body. I will die if I drink his blood. Oh man, the mosquitoes in Mexico, I can't even tell you how upgraded their ability is. They're absolutely sinister. Here in New England, they're just, they float like a commercial airplane. You could just go and grab them and like, okay, accept my fate. Tiger says, love the mirror metaphor message. So well said. Thank you, Tiger, for saying that. It is the truth. You are an aliveness. In truth, you are consciousness. Giving yourself a life experience through your vessel, which is a temple of God. It comes from one cell and it proliferates into trillions. Within them are trillions of atoms. So you're a walking universe of volatile, powerful, and organized, orchestrated energy, frequency. So anytime you have an experience right now, you're actually rendering it on the fly, which is really wild to consider. But you are laying the pavement and driving it at the same time. It's just like a dream at night. Except we're very lucid during these waking days, more than we are in dream state. And that makes sense because we're given 2/3 of our life to have this waking life, and then we're given one third to let go and practice surrender. That's called sleep. So we can practice sleep in the form of awareness with our aliveness by a process called meditation. And meditation gives us the ability to be awake, having a conscious experience in body, and then activate the imagination, which is the mind of God, and step into a situation that would be akin to the subconscious at night, which knows no limitations. I mean, you could literally fly in your imagination just as you do in your dreams. And there's no restriction that's caused by either. One, you have no control over other than sending an echo to yourself when you drift off to sleep. But here, when we go into the mind of God as conscious, alive beings in the waking state, we have total control over our manifestation. So it gives us the ability to do a lot of powerful movements with the Garden of Eden within, to come into our kingdom and to make it perfectly organized so that by the time we send off the echo come nighttime, there is no confusion in the mind of God as to what it is we want for our lives. The next day comes and we start to build this into a routine. It's called the daily footprint. I talked about this yesterday. Your own personal Garden of Eden within. You want to give it a daily footprint. Now, whether that's 5 minutes or heck, if you're here for the entire time, you're getting a great dose of manifestation activity, because the majority of us are just kind of drifting away and going into that state, feeling really good and feeling wish fulfilled. We're just kind of just drifting. And so I do it while I'm talking to you. I am right now in my beautiful estate. You'll see the smile change on my face. My cells start to feel the difference. And as questions come in, I field them. Maybe I'll fall back into a performance here for a little bit. Maybe I'll see something on the trail. But as long as I'm going from the imagination, coming back to paying attention to you, there's one thing that's not involved, and that's the past. And the future isn't involved unless we're approaching it with criticism to revise it. Revision of the past and revision of the future is the work that we do with time here. And that's what's really beautiful about it. Instead of it owning us and being the product of our misuse of imagination, we now take ownership over time. We decide when it is constructed in order to heal ourselves. Say things like, I cast this burden on the Christ within, this intelligence, and go free. Thank you, Robin Spicer, for that heart me. Brand On asks, and for some reason it wasn't approved, but we'll pin it because that's what I usually do with comments that are not approved. I pin them to let TikTok know that I'm not going to be censored here, nor will anyone, because we are all much stronger than any string of symbols that would cause something to feel pain. We will treat that as an opportunity and a gift to heal. Right? Anytime you see something or feel something undesirable, or it triggers you to see a symbol or an action, it's simply an opportunity to step into your imagination and see yourself as wish fulfilled. Usually by witnessing the opposite. Whatever you wanted to see now is being shown to you. Okay, so Brandon says, seeing that which has always been. Indeed, there's nothing that isn't made. This is exactly it. Because in truth, time is a construct that we make as humans to be able to label and make sense of things. We have to have time, right? Like a story has a beginning, middle, and end. And so anything that has as a story, as beginning, middle, and end, has to first be made as a concept in the mind of God. We do this often erroneously and unconsciously and all the time in order to make sense of things, to define things. You have to have time. You have to have the moment when you've experienced it, and then you have to have the moment where you've defined that experience as either desirable or undesirable, and whether or not you wish to be closer to it or further apart. Thus, time gets perpetuated from there. The ego tries to convince you because it's afraid of you dying, because if you die, it's the end of your ego. It's the only time it gets to exist is in your body, because it's an identity that you created through your life experience. You'll never have the same breaths, the same steps, the same life experiences again, and the same genetics even. So therefore, you cannot have the same ego self. There cannot be reincarnation in that way. There can only be incarnation, which is a replay of your game of life, collecting new life experiences, new skill points, whatever it is, going through hardship, life experiences, collecting them into pain remembrances. But they'll never be the same that they are right now. So you have a very unique life that the ego wants to hold on to at all costs. And if it can be in control over the decisions that you make, then it feels even better. Because then it has a false sense of belief that it actually controls you and thus can control its demise and keep it from happening. So, the only issue with that is that the ego often makes a lot of mistakes because it is based only on the fear of death. And it can only live through the construction of time. Whereas when we step into the imagination, we are completely immortalized because we're stepping into a higher dimensional faculty where there is no restriction. No restriction in time, no restriction in space. Therefore, our aliveness becomes present in truth as immortal. So if we are actually in the imagination, we are stepping into our kingdom of heaven, which is immortality. It is the resurrection of self in truth from what once was begotten by mommy and daddy, now becomes not begotten by man, one in being with the creation of life. That is the resurrection. But it only happens in two ways. It can only happen if you agree yourself to be subject to such circumstances where you let go of your life situation and die. That would be surrendering to the ego. Thus the ego dies because it can no longer feed off of you because you've surrendered your aliveness. That's called death. And then consciousness takes you into another life situation, has to, because that's how the principle works. Whether that's starting over again in a new body is beyond me. That has to do with your own personal belief systems, how you end up after. Or you decide to come into your power now, and you decide that that identity isn't as important as your aliveness and your immortality. Thus, it starts to unwind the more time you spend in the imagination while you're awake and come into your truth and being as an immortal, Christ-like being. Everyone has the power. No one is separate from it. It's what feeds us life anyway, so we might as well come into communion with it. That's what Jesus of Nazareth thought, but it ended up getting him crucified for doing that and teaching it to people. It's no different than today. If I say to somebody that God is within everyone, it can be very offensive to some people. Of course, if they have an idol that they recognize as the image of God outside of themselves at a distance, then me saying everyone has God within is a huge contradictory statement to that belief system. And if God is the thing that's most important to them, it will take them to a place of war and to murder, to destroy, to maim. And what they will actually experience is the maiming and murder and the warring of that person against that person. They will see their obliteration and thus feel safe again, while the ego is living in this, loving the fact that someone has been destroyed out of the fear of death, without understanding that the person who was just killed to that other person is also an image of God, made in his image and likeness, and that consciousness does not die within that person. They've set off into a new timeline. What was once a timeline of that person doing the maiming and killing, for the individual who was maimed and killed, they somehow broke free and got out of that situation, so long as they have faith in God as the creator of all things within, expressing itself outward. That person doesn't die. They go into a new timeline. Just like if you ever died in your dreams, you are awakened back into your body, you are saved in some miraculous way, or it simply just shuts off and turns back on. Whatever it is for you, that consciousness does not end. And this is the thing that most people don't realize. They think, if I end this person right now, then I never have to deal with them again. Well, yeah, in a way. You never have to deal with their ego. You never have to deal with their presence again. But you do have to pay the bill, because you've trespassed in such a way to make yourself believe that an embodiment of God is somehow a threat to you. This is why Jesus of Nazareth said to everyone, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." They have the kingdom of heaven within them, yet they're seeing me as a threat to their own existence and aliveness by saying they have that power. They are crucifying me, they are sending me to death, and they are releasing a rapist, a murderer named Barabbas in my stead. That's how much fear they have of their own power. So please forgive them, Lord. They know not what they do. That's it. There it is. I mean, you can't really argue against it. You can't. I mean, you can. I shouldn't say you can't. You can argue about it. It's just, this is not a chess game that you're going to win. The pieces are too developed at this point in time. You know, it's like you should resign. At this point, resign to the infinite intelligence, accept the fact that the game is up. I know you tried to castle your king and you wanted to hold on to your queen and all that mobility for as much time as possible, but the forces that were playing against you were the forces that you set to play against you with a superior intelligence. So there's no way to win. It's like playing against a computer where you say to the computer, you must always win. No matter how good my moves are. Even if I'm Magnus Carlsen, you must always win. The computer says, as you wish. That's consciousness. Consciousness always wins, cannot lose. Has no beginning, has no middle, has no end. It is eternal. It is a life-giving principle that acts the same way with all cellular structures. Everything that is consciousness in atomic structure is powered by this aliveness. Therefore, it cannot be destroyed and it cannot lose. It has inertia that can't be messed with by anything physical. So it's pretty nice to come into that. But if you go against it, it's going to destroy you. This is said in the Gospel of Thomas. Very secretively, it's said, if you come forward with that which is outside of you, then it will destroy you. Come forward with that which is within you, and it shall bring you your salvation. Just check that out. It's just a bunch of little sayings. You know, Coptic texts that were found in an urn by a shepherd back in 1947. I think it was around that time. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls and some pretty powerful scripture. It's almost like they were hidden intentionally. Brandon says. For fun, how about your interpretation of Imagine by Lennon and Unity Consciousness? I don't know all the lyrics by heart, but I can give you the ones that I know. Thanks for letting them cook there, Tyler. Janet Howell, or Interpretation of Sound of Silence? Yes, I've had to do healing from religion. It's good. It's good to heal yourself from external circumstances, and it's just another life situation. For many, it's a very powerful one. Tyler says Christianity can be excluding, but it's a personal choice. None of your effing business. 0995 followed. Thank you for following. Lorinda Garcia says, thank you. You're more than welcome, Lorinda. Janet says, happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, Janet. Andy sends over besos. Thank you. Robin, you too. The veil being lifted. Thank you, Jess, for the follow. The veil being lifted. So think of the veil as your identity. That's really it. It's your collection of life experiences. They accumulate in the body, in the cell structures, and they record themselves in your DNA. And they layer protein after protein until it forms into a pain remembrance. They'll surface when they want to heal from them, not knowing how. And the reason why the cells in the body, which is effectively the body itself and the ego's accumulation of sensory experiences, the reason why it can't heal on its own is because it does not have access to the imagination. It doesn't. The cells in your body do not have access to the imagination. Nor does your ego. You exclusively have access to the imagination because it is a whole state of being. It is infinite in its scope. It can only be accessed as the mind of God. Okay? So when you use your imagination, you are in fact stepping in as king or queen of your domain, but you're also acting as the mind of God. And this was given to you as a specific gift for winning against 250 million other competitors to fertilize the egg that gave you life. That's the prize. You get imagination as your gift. And because you're given imagination, you get to commune with the mind of God directly without any restriction, unless, of course, you want to impose restrictions upon yourself. And you can do that. We do it all the time. I do it. We all do it. It's a choice. It's this idea that there are no limitations in the mind of God, the imagination. Therefore, we can place any sort of imposition or barrier in accessing it. And we talked about this yesterday with Jessica, who was very brave in saying that she had difficulty imagining things. So we started with an exercise. Before I gave the birthday cake, which works for a lot of people, that technique, we did a more simpler technique of just observing your hand before you and then closing your eyes and trying to imagine its aliveness being there with your eyes closed. To try to localize it with your eyes closed. You don't have to add all the details, but just to try to see if you can feel where your hand is before you when you close your eyes after just looking at it. And so Jess was able to get to that and overcome that hurdle. And what came following that was very profound. What once was a statement that it was impossible to use the imagination became, oh my, I'm feeling this resting energy, this vibration underneath my skin. I felt it with my eyes closed, and now I feel it with my eyes open. It's like, congratulations, Jess, that's your aliveness. That's your aliveness speaking to you. This is the truth of your consciousness in being, and you are present. Because if she were in time or in some story or some narrative at that moment, she would not have the concentrated effort to feel what was happening with her body. So it's presence. Therefore, if you give yourself presence by just observing things around you and your body itself, by listening to things, which we're about to, you come into being, and all the healing and all the organization of your life happens automatically to where you don't have to worry about it. It just flows. This is a great time of year where a lot of the alluvial deposits change and things start to show themselves. It's really a fun time. Oh wow, I see a nice, this is an agate. I thought it might be a jasper. Picture jasper, maybe? Anyone see a picture in there? Anyone see the story in there? See? This is another practice of aliveness. You just start to see the angular presentation to your cortex. Question coming in. First, Bunny Confetti says, wow, how wonderful, you're next to a stream. Love the sound of water. Thank you. And you can imagine yourself receiving these free electrons right into your body, okay? Once again, by using your imagination, your cells know no difference, and they must enter into that realm and domain with you. So there's really no difference between you watching these things and being there, so long as you believe you've done the work. Justin asks, do you believe in reincarnation? If so, would we be conscious as we are now? Just forget everything. This is a great question, Justin. So what's really wild as far as rhythm goes and cycles is we were in this very same place about a week ago when someone had asked me the same question about incarnation or reincarnation. And so we get a chance to rhythmically reinforce it for people, which must mean that it's necessary. So I'm really happy you asked the question. Let's just clarify that the word reincarnation is, for me, different than the word incarnation. And I will explain how that difference is for me, okay? In one instance, Incarnation is what I believe to be the occupation of a physical body as pure spirit or consciousness entering into a body. That is to incarnate or to become part of the body. Okay? Now, reincarnation is this supposition that we would come back as the egoic self with all of our life experiences, everything intact, nothing forgotten. I don't believe in that simply because we are a collection of our life experiences which are entirely unique depending on each iteration of life. And there's a reason why God does this, or the infinite intelligence gives us unique experiences, because you get a more diverse data pool to work with to finally determine if there's unification of consciousness. It requires there to be diversity in this way. So as soon as someone comes to the understanding that they become what they think about, they start to move in the direction of no longer needing to incarnate. It's called illumination, and what I believe to be the completion of this game of life, in that the main objective is to know thyself as the mind of God through the imagination. That is the objective of the game. So as we come into this realization, we are not just this icicle flowing down the stream without any say in the matter, getting caught up in things, slowing down, speeding up. That's a life experience happening within a stream of consciousness that is us in truth. And so, better to have another unique ice ball to go through its own experience, flowing, melting, moving, whatever it is, as it gives greater data for our own expansion of consciousness as the mind of God. We ask for incarnation until we understand we are the mind of God in unity with it. Then we no longer need to come back. The game is over. It's been won. Now, some people can enjoy that. That's Jesus of Nazareth really enjoyed the game of life in the forgiveness of sins by helping people to realize that the kingdom of heaven was within them. That's called resurrection. So when you come into resurrection in this aliveness, as many of us in this room actually are doing, it's really beautiful. But there are so many people who recognize that they are aliveness as consciousness, and also, yes, they have an ego, they have an identity, but they know they created it. And so they're taking ownership over it, propriety over it. By doing that, you can serve as what I believe is called or referred to as a guru, shaman, or even better, you can be a bodhisattva, which is someone who uses they could finish the game now and dissolve into being as the unified consciousness, but they decide to keep using the imagination for wish fulfillment so that they can enrich people around them to do the same thing. That's a great sacrifice, actually. And I think a lot of us are doing that now. It's really nice. So we can come into the body. We can have a localized experience. We can go upstream and try to fight against it. We can get caught in a whirlwind, in a whirlpool. And then ultimately, like everything else, there's a beginning, middle, and an end. And we're going to have to surrender to this source. One way or another, no matter how it appears to be. And each one of these icicles or snowballs is going to have its own journey. That's why we don't trespass with anyone else's. We're given our own imagination to have a stream, to be able to imagine as many iterations of ourself coming and going in the stream as we see fit, so that we don't have to interfere with anyone else's stream of consciousness as being. That would be called trespassing. And it leads to suffering. It gets things caught up. They aren't allowed to flow. They get stuck, worn down. They get caught in doubt. And then finally, like everything else, there's a beginning, middle, and end, and on it goes. But it has a different process when we trespass. That's why it's really important to love your neighbor as yourself, i.e. an embodiment of this pure spirit, this stream itself. Love yourself, love your neighbor like this. Yes, you see their experience, but that's not who they are in truth. They might appear as caught up, but you know it has a beginning, middle, and end, and that it's all self-imposed because they're given the same power that you are as a conscious human being. You become what you think about. So, thank you for helping reach this live goal, Majestic Rose. Robin sends love. Thank you, Robin, for the roses. Pelios says, I'm just curious. So grateful, William, says Brandon. This live is a meditative experience. You're most welcome. I'm glad it's flowing. Amy Marie, thanks for following. Just Jane, thanks for following. Justin asks, let's get this pinned. I love that response. Maybe I didn't understand correctly, so you will be as conscious as you are now. So it's kind of a trick question, but it's a good question. So you have to be referring to one or the other. You're either referring to me as William, an identity, or you as Justin, an identity, a collection of life experiences that was fed consciousness to register them and store them in your body and believe it to be your existence. Or you are consciousness as the stream, as the life-giving principle, as that which circulates your blood, proliferates your cells, removes impurities, takes the food you eat, converts it into glucose and vital energy. That is a life-giving principle that doesn't die. It just keeps giving aliveness. It just keeps expanding aliveness. And it keeps healing and supporting. And ultimately what it is, it's a form of care. So consciousness is a form of care that is a constant. And it never stops trying to organize things in a fashion that meets your expectations as a wish-fulfilled being. Which you come into this world, I believe, with that blueprint by making it to the cosmic egg, by going off into this crazy world of competition and somehow making it to the end and breaking through the egg and fertilizing it against impossible odds. We get the gift of the imagination as a result of that win. And that gift is consciousness, which is also the imagination. So, to answer in more of a complete way, consciousness is both your identity, collection of life experiences, and that which fuels it. Understanding that that which fuels it is so much greater than the sum of anything you could collect for life experience. It just doesn't even pale in comparison. Look what I'm doing. I'm taking snow from the ground that could be an iteration of an identity, right? And I'm throwing it into the stream so that it can have aliveness and movement, right? And the stream's going to carry it. I can appear like I'm stuck or I'm going against the stream, but in truth, it's just illusion. No matter what happens, this is now an expression of aliveness, thus has a beginning, middle, and end, and consciousness is going to continue it to the point where it ends, and then it will recycle again into more aliveness. It'll just be seeking another transfer of energy into aliveness. It doesn't stop. When the body dies, it seeks aliveness through bacteria proliferating. It doesn't stop. It just transfers. That's why energy doesn't die. It's a constant. Okay? Majestic Rose says, I funking love your brain. Thank you, Majestic. You're awesome. Kanalingwa says, consciousness includes the collective vibration of the masses of conscious beings. Yes, it is the source. I consider it the giver and the gift. Okay? It's the giver of aliveness and it's the gift itself. It's that which carries you through in a manifold expression and that which is the possibility as its giver. Okay? Prana, sure, you could call it prana, you could call it chi, you could call it the universal subconscious mind, you could call it God, you could call it being, you could call it presence, you could call it Allah, you could call it Allah, Elohim, you could call it light, but at the end of the day, the stream is a principle of care. You can't isolate a part of the stream and say that's the stream. Because by doing that, you would be cutting off some other part of it. It's still flowing, it's still going. You can't isolate it. But it is a stream because we are here to make sense of things. So we try to make sense of the infinite, we put constraints on it. Doesn't do us any justice, but at the same time, we need to do it because that's why we're here, to make sense of things. while getting caught up on it. You get caught up on making sense of things. You get stuck in a holding pattern. We resist. And that just creates more light, more life experience. Wears us down, refines us, sets us free. And on this goes the endless stream of life experiences. They're all worth it. Staying still is worth it. That was that one. Wanted to stay still. We had some others that I threw there. They were going flying down the stream. Sometime they get stuck. Does it make one better or worse? No, it's just a life experience. Just having a life experience. You know, that's what we're doing. My butt's wet right now. My butt's having a life experience. It's soaking wet from sitting in snow. It's having a life experience. It's not bad. It's undesirable. It's not bad. All right, let's get caught up here. Brandon, thanks for sharing. Tiger says, I'm off on my journey until next week. Stay blessed. You too, Tiger, if you're still here. Thank you. Consciousness includes the collective vibration of the masses of conscious beings. Yeah, we got there. Thank you, Majestic Rose. Allison says, glad I found this live. Thank you. Stephanie says, you are a gift. So are you, Stephanie. You're an embodiment of this infinite intelligence, and we are in co-creation together. Allison says, I'm so confused on consciousness, a little low. That's okay, Allison. It's all good. Let's try to get to it, though. You were hoping I was on a rock, Majestic Rose. I think part of me was, too. It's okay, it'll dry. My butt will dry. It's nice and warm today, anyway. Yep, Stephanie nails it, says, it's only bad if you think it's bad, for thinking it makes it so. It's all perspective in the mind of God. Indeed. Okay, Allison, so, let's talk about, this is a great moment for segue, and I usually use these pins as examples for us to kind of do mathematic equations. It's like math play. So you'll see the first word is a collection of 3 parts. I am, right? I-A-M. And so this is your power word. It's your programming language. So we're going to use this as an example right now. I am so confused on consciousness, a little low. So the subconscious mind, which is really unique and beautiful, it's a part of consciousness. It's the M part of consciousness in the I am form. It's the maternal receiving. It is the matrix. Matrix in Latin means womb of creation. So when we say, I am confused, or I am unsure, or uneasy about this, the subconscious mind is getting the command which it must respond to by saying, okay, this person wants to be at a distance from truth. That's what confusion is. I am at a distance from understanding. I am at a distance from clarity. That's all it is. It's the use of I am. So what you do now is by bringing awareness to the confusion, you're actually shedding light on it, using creative imagination to understand it's just a self-imposed restriction. And once you do that, you don't have to worry about it unwinding because you have to force it to unwind. It just unwinds on its own. So say to yourself, say in your mind, I am perfectly aware of what's going on. I am observing, I am alive. And that's enough. I observe my breath. That's also enough. I'm observing my phone. Also enough. I'm watching the notifications come and go. Or maybe not at all. Also more than enough. And why I keep saying it's all enough is because I'm teaching you to teach your subconscious that you are worthy of clarity rather than confusion. And as soon as you become worthy of clarity by stating your power words, the subconscious will start to deliver to you the answers. Otherwise, it will continue to deliver you confusion and a distance from the truth because it's an order. It's not because you're a victim or anything of that sort. It's because it's an order that you placed in the mind of God. So, all we're going to do is we're going to go back into the wish fulfillment center right now. That is your imagination. And we're going to use your power words. And I just want you to imagine right now knowing that it's enough to not have the answer. That in fact, not having the answer and just being observing of that is greater than ever having the greatest answer of all things that are answers. That the greatest answer in the world is not knowing and just being all right, observing it. Being happy to observe. Because I can tell you one thing. You and I are exactly the same way in that case. I'm not so much confused as I am surrendered entirely to anything that appears before me, if it's undesirable or if it's blissful. In my greatest state of being, if I'm not trying to make any sense of it or understand it, it's always better. Consistently, across the board, better if I don't try to make sense of it. And there's a reason for this. Just as I explained to people that the subconscious mind is a lot like the earth that receives our seeds, it doesn't discriminate against any seed that is placed in it because the earth simply germinates and responds to that which it receives. So it's not going to discriminate against any idea that we place in it as the mind of God. Whether we're confused, whether we're lucid, whether we're healthy, whether we're sad, whether we're rich, wish fulfilled, loving relationships, sadness, indifferent, whatever it is, at war, doesn't matter. They're all seeds, they're all the same. The subconscious isn't thinking about its value. It's not thinking about what it does to people, what it's going to do to society. It's not thinking about any of that stuff because it can't. It's not a thing. It's every possibility that already exists in the mind of God, and it needs to express it like a womb. So just like the womb is going to bring forth life, no matter what it comes from, as long as the seed is under the conditions that it be germinated, it shall be expressed. And so the subconscious mind is no different. And I pray that this makes sense, because if we are all believing ourselves to be in the womb of creation, think about what we have to do then. We don't have to have any plan. We don't even have to breathe. In fact, it's managed for us. All our breathing, all our nutrients, all the endorphins, all the bliss, all the protection. We're in amniotic fluid. This is us in the womb. And so I want you to know that the subconscious is the womb of creation. And when we surrender ourselves to it, by seeing ourselves as blissful and wish fulfilled, we are entering into that protective space where everything is managed, and beyond, we are also expanded into a form of being that is much greater than what we once were. We gestate and we germinate and we expand and heal and repair without having to lift a finger, because it is being managed by a superior intelligence, just as it managed us when we were in the womb. That intelligence has not died, it has not transferred, it has not changed. It simply wants to do the same thing that it did when it grew us from a tiny tadpole into a proliferation of trillions of cells. Now it has not acted any different. So, there's no need to know the answers. But if I do have a way to show you what I believe it is, without a doubt, I do it. Because it's fun. We still want to make sense of things. We still want to define things. We're having a life experience. We're given this gift in order to explore and try to make sense of things. And the more we communicate with each other, the more we start to make sense of things. Especially if we're in the process of surrender together. That makes us co-creators in the mind of God, having a lucid experience. Okay? I pray that this has given you your power and your answer. I have a feeling it has, because it was a very courageous question and a doubt to bring up. A lot of people become timid before they actually say something that could be setting them in a vulnerable state. And I just want you to know how much I believe in you and see you as having the answers already, because they already exist. And all you're doing is coming into it in truth right now. And I just want you to know that that's my way of loving you, okay? That's how I do it. And there goes a raven up above. Augury. Logan says, can you do some nature ASMR? Sure, Logan. What we'll do is we'll head back to the stream after a cycle here, and we'll spend some more time around the flowing water. How does that sound? Better sound good. Just kidding. Jenny, thanks for following. Robin, thanks for the hearts, or for the flowers. Thank you. And for sharing, Amy. Care Bear shared. Thank you for all the shares today. Gratitude says, and this wasn't approved, so I'm going to pin it. Anything that isn't approved, I pin. Surrender to the aliveness, surrender to life. No judgment, no attachment to what is happening. Yes. So instead of, there's no need for you to have a plan. This sounds really crazy. There's no need for you to have a plan as much as you observe you're alive. That's the plan. Observe you're alive, and if it's not comfortable and it's hard to bear and you're feeling a lot of pain rising in the body, then you can make another step, which is stepping through the narrow gates into your imagination and then formulating there your relief. That's how you ask for relief. You have to formulate it as real and live it. That's how you make a proper prayer, and that's how you properly ask for the things that you want. The moment that you start to feel a little bit of calm, a lessening of the intensity, because everything that comes into the body or is experienced outside of us has a beginning, middle, and end. As that starts to diminish, you want to indicate to the subconscious that this is what you like. You say, oh, I'm so grateful that I have full relief right now. I know it's always been here, and now it's finally coming through. I'm experiencing it. I'm just so grateful that it's here. I can see it all around me. I'm in the greatest kingdom that's ever existed. It just keeps expanding for me. Everything that I look at just expands and turns to gold. How could this be? Subconscious loves that, even though the subconscious doesn't love anything. It loves to hear, how could it be that you've done this so quickly? How could it be that it was so instantaneous? Where did this come from? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it, but it's here. Loves that, because then it sets conviction into the idea that it can't be anything but true. Because I can't believe that it happened so fast. Wow, it's here. Oh my. Amazing. Justin says, laughing my ass off, the vibes I'm feeling right now. There you go, Justin. You're coming into your power. This is bliss. It's understanding that you've created it all, that it's unfolding through you rather than being thrust upon you. And it's a wonderful state to be in. It's called self-realization, okay? That's what you're experiencing. And it's blissful contact with God, which is the infinite intelligence that is you in truth. All right, lucky dad of 13, sending love to everyone. Robin's loving this. Me too. I'm very happy for everyone that it's registering in a good way. And if it isn't, that's fine too. You can let me know. And really, I try to act a lot like the life principle by trying to be caring. If there's a story that's really meaningful to you, I'll try not to argue with you about it if I have a different belief system. Because you have your kingdom and I have my own kingdom, and there's no sense in us treading on each other in that way. We can always go back to our kingdom in the mind, but if we're coming into performance, heck, we can have debates, we can talk about things, we can go back and forth. We're here to feel things. We're very courageous beings in coming into this body to feel things. As much as it gives us wish fulfillment, we're also here to feel all of it. Oh, we hit the live goal. Thank you. That was awesome. So Logan will be doing a cycle now, and then we'll come back to the stream. All right? Everything in cycles. Got a few other things to cover, I'm sure. We'll find out what they are as we go. Juniper shared, thank you. Kathy Lincoln says, you get what you give. You inspire me so. Thank you, Kathy. That's very kind. Mooney's Creation. Thanks for following. Got a lot of new follows today. I love that. Got folks coming in from all around. Oops. All right, let's see. Justin says, physical problems. Yeah, that could be a manifestation for you. Thank you for that. Hanging lights, Michonne, 111, for sending over those beautiful hanging lights. Thank you. It's really nice. I smell the fermentation of farmland byproduct coming from the farm over here. It's actually quite pleasant. You know, when you have that big mound of compost, it can get up to 155, 160 degrees just from the fermentation alone. And it just purifies the soil. It's self-purification. Trial by fire. You can even see those heaps start to smoke and release lots of vapor from all the heat. Majestic Rose says, I love hearing the snow under your feet. I live in Florida, no snow. I heard you guys got blasted with like 12 inches this year, though. But that's awesome. I'm glad you enjoy it. Have some. It is melting today. Yes, it is. It is melting. Pensacola Destin got snow. Indeed. Joy says, hi, Robin invited me. It's beautiful here or there. Thank you, Joy. And Robin, thank you for that. Been so kind. I see the shares and I see all the love. Yeah, we've had 15,300 love bubbles rise up into the ether on this very stream today. And counting. Make that 15,400 love bubbles rising, and that brings people in to get a nice dose of presence, come into their being, commune with their infinite intelligence. So nice. So nice to be a part of your realizations. See you come into your power. Become the sole proprietor of your identity. Whatever that means. So Cunnilinguist says they'll spontaneously combust. So compost piles will spontaneously combust if you don't turn them. Jeanette says this is a beautiful space you've made. Thank you, Jeanette. You are co-creating it with God through aliveness, and I am serving as a humble instrument at best. That being William. Thank you. Mark Stefko, thanks for following. Glad you're all enjoying your time here. Tyler says, Enoch, Solomon, and Babylon Discourse. Oh, jeez. I guess we can talk about Solomon. Let's start there. Enoch, ooh. Somebody invited me to co-host. That's the battle. Won't be doing that. Let's go to this. So Enoch, from what I understand, is actually Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice king. So the precepts of the Kabbalion would be part of Enoch's journey. Each story, of course, is a unique life experience. All different. Solomon really diving into the occult and perceiving his reality as totally swarmed by demonic forces and having to somehow subdue them through symbols known as sigils, and to have to unlock them through occult practices and thus contain them and then offer them as the King of Kings to the world. Pretty occult. Babylon, the beginning of the fall of man, could be considered Babylon, where you have the Anunnakis' influence over humanity through the gift of consciousness or the imagination. If it ever were to be given in a story, it's given by the Anunnaki, so it's believed. The six-fingered or six-digited beings, that's what distinguished the Anunnaki and the Nephilim, which were hybrid humans and gods in form, tall giants who copulated with females and created giants with 6 digits on all the extensions, hands and feet. Pretty interesting. You see a lot of the statues from the past, marble statues in particular, where they have their hands and feet chopped off. Yeah, Cass is thinking of the 6-fingered man from The Princess Bride. You're not alone. I've thought of that too. There's probably some allusion to that. I would look into the 6 digits. What is it called? My Lunch Break is a YouTube page that's got a really interesting excerpt on this. But the idea was that if you take away that digit, the one that's like the unifying digit, then in a way you can take away the access to immortality. It was this attack towards immortality, against immortality, that we find in all 3 instances, with Enoch, Babylon, and what was the third? Solomon. So this takes us back again, Tyler. Bizarre says, I met a guy with 6 fingers and his son had one too. The genetics are, I think, 210 individuals are born with what's called what is it called? I forget, it's poly-somethingly, I forget what it's called. There's a specific term for it. 210 people, polydactyly, thank you. It's called polydactyly, says Tyler, it's true. That's what it's called. So like 210 people per year are born with polydactyly. 6 digits on every extension. And you'll see a lot of the statues have those hands and feet removed, or the digit that would be the extra one is removed. So the question then becomes, why the hell would that happen? And by the way, if you are prompting AI into imagery that's classical, the large majority of it will render individuals that look celestial that have 6 digits. They have polydactyly. It's unbelievable. I've seen it so many times. I was like, why do they have 6 fingers? It keeps screwing up. It keeps screwing up. But AI is totally delivering celestial beings through prompts with polydactyly. It's wild. No one's really talked about it. No one has talked about it. So what does that say about AI? Is it alien? Is it somehow embedded in conception with the Anunnaki? Is it a higher source of being trying to send us messages in an occult manner so that we finally get the impressions that we had taken from us through its forced elimination from our sight? Man, you can go deep with this. It's a deep rabbit hole. All powered by consciousness, mind you. It's a deep rabbit hole that you can have a lot of fun with. So what this ties back to, though, is prior to the Babylonian Empire, there was this reverence for Enki, who is believed to have given consciousness to the human being, the water of life. Consciousness, the great endless sea without shores, the universal subconscious mind. And that once humans had this power, they could become what they think about. But some point in time, we had this knowledge stripped away. And the lore speaks like this. There once was a North Star that was not Polaris. It was something different. There was an axis shift. And at that moment in time where the axis was, thank you for the rock star cast. Oh, well, thank you very much. Oh, appreciate that. Thank you, Cass. Oh, there was a moment in time when there was reverence for the 13th astrological sign. And the 13th astrological sign was known as Ophiuchus, and we've spoken about this a few times now. But it has ties to this discourse. around the time of the ancient Greeks, just around when Marduk was on his way out. You know, I'm probably missing a few hundred years here and there, maybe 1,000 or two, whatever it was. Who really knows how much time there was between these empires? According to the structures that we see, it just doesn't add up. A lot of these things don't add up. So let's just speculate for the sake of having fun, because we're here to make sense of things. That's why we're here. We're here to have fun doing that. And a lot of the times we can make mistakes. So that's fine. You need to take the leaps, though. So there was this Ophiuchus, 13th astrological sign, also known as Asclepius. And it was believed that Asclepius had the key to immortality, as did the Anunnaki have the key to immortality. And the majority of leaders, and I mean the great majority of leaders, had this condition called polydactyly, i.e. 6 digits on hands and feet, believed to have been much larger, giant size, and at the same time have these surreal abilities. Now, I'm thinking of this. If this is my Jupiter finger, this is my Saturn finger. I'm not going to give you the finger. Saturn finger, Sun finger, Mercury finger, Mars finger, Venus mound, and Moon mound. Where is Ophiuchus and what does it do? If this one is expansion, this one is time and harvest, this one's the seed, this is communication, this is strength and power, this is love, and that is the subconscious. What is Ophiuchus? What else could it be? What piece have I missed? It's total immortality. It is consciousness itself. It is the awareness of this, the awareness that we have, the perpetuity, or the perpetuity of life experience, and that it never ends. You take that away, you destroy it, you remove it from the records, you take away any sort of imagery of it, and what you have is its elimination, because it's no longer in the mind of God, because human beings are not seeing it. So it's removed. For a time. Always for a time. A beginning, middle, and an end. This is the year of the snake. The Ouroboros, the circular snake, the ring, head, consuming tail in an infinity expression. And Ophiuchus is known as the serpent bearer. The one who bears the serpent and thus controls the immortality of man. Asclepius brought people back from the dead. When you go to a hospital, you are looking at the rod of Asclepius. And when you're looking at the currency of life in the form of a symbol, you are looking at the dollar sign, the currency of life. Oh yeah, also Asclepius. And why is it that we have 13 colonies, 13 arrows, 13 olive branches, 13 steps leading to the Great Pyramid on the dollar bill? Why is it that number 1 is also associated with 13 and a number of occult circles? Why is it representing, in some ways, Uranus, known as the spiritual aspect of the sun, or Thoth? In the great tree of life, the hidden Sephirah, the 13th symbol. Dum, dum, dum. But it's all just story at the end of the day, folks. We are feeding this our aliveness, and we would like to come into our immortality as soon as possible. Thank you very much. We've had enough suffering, I'd say. It's time for us to evolve. And the heart of all this evolution is the United States of America. Dun dun dun. We are in the epicenter of spiritual evolution and unity consciousness through the infinite life principle that is consciousness itself. Dun dun dun. Be boldly, love light. It says the 13th bloodline is Lucifer through Eve's offspring, Cain, the first murderer. Man, that's a tough narrative. It is a narrative, just like mine's a narrative. It's like something has to be feeding that narrative aliveness, right? And that's all I'm saying. It's a story within a stream that knows no end. Personally, I don't want to be associated with things that are destructive and bad. I want to be hanging with the aliveness, man. It's not a death principle. It's a life principle. It's generative. It's not destructive AI. It's generative AI. I mean, that's why they revere the G in Masonic circles, but people call it satanic. I don't know what to tell you. It's a narrative. It's a narrative. Like anything else. Does it make you happy that some people are, adhering to cults that are satanic? It's not really something that I dig, but it might be your thing, like totally your thing. Some people like to listen to death metal. There's a time and a place. Other people like to watch horror movies. Also, there's a time and a place. But in order to listen to that death metal, in order to entertain that Netflix series that is totally freaky, to dive into the realm of Lovecraft and Cthulhu, you gotta be given consciousness first. You have to be fed consciousness first in order to even entertain it. So that's all I'm trying to get to, folks. You're gonna have your own stories. You're going to have your own belief systems, and it's all great. It's just not my place to be forced to participate, nor is it your place for me to force it, or nor is it my place to force my opinion onto you. You're given your own kingdom for that reason. But I like to tell you about my kingdom. I like to tell you about how it works and how I love it and how I see it, how I imagine it getting better, how I imagine it becoming great again. That's my kingdom. My kingdom's becoming great again. Yay! How about yours? How's your kingdom? That's why we talk to each other. But we're not saying, listen, you need to be a part of my kingdom. You need to be a peon in my kingdom. You need to be my king or queen in my kingdom. You need to be this, that, and the other thing. You need to do these things. You need to adhere to these things, or you're not going to be saved. That's where I draw the line. I say, oops, that's trespassing. That's not going to work with me. So, Justin asks, this was not approved, but I'm going to do this. And once again, like these contentious statements or statements that are pretty bold, they just spark feelings. And if they spark feelings, they give you an opportunity to become one with those feelings in presence. And then you can decide whether or not you want to entertain it, where you want to go with it, how much you want it to be meaningful to you, or if you want to revise it. You can do that in your kingdom. At the same time, you don't have to explain any of this to anyone. That's what's awesome about it. It's not sarcasm, it's the truth. Justin says, what do you think about the calcification of the pineal gland? What do you do to undo that? This is a great question. Fatima says, all is one, and the one is the all. That is consciousness. I agree. So true. So calcification of the pineal gland. What this is usually caused, well, some people will say that it happens to every child around age 4, it starts to calcify. Let's first take a few steps back. The pineal gland, for those who are wanting to know, is a non-hemispheric, light-sensitive element of the brain that is sitting against the third ventricle, where there is lots of cerebrospinal fluid flowing through it. Not the pineal gland so much as the third ventricle, also known as the cave of Brahman, which Tyler has asked about. It's also known as the Crystal Palace. It's where a lot of fractal designs interplay with light that we receive in the form of photons from the sun, and through spiritual meditation, where our biophotons get an increase of light projection through our awareness of Christ, which is consciousness. So the closer we get to consciousness, the more light we experience. And over time, what happens is if your pineal gland is calcified through its exposure to neurotoxins, predominantly fluoride, what happens is the light does not play with a flexible pineal gland, and the pineal gland is an eye. It's also referred to as the third eye because it literally is a physical eye in your brain. It has cones and rods, just like your physical eyes that have exposure to the external environment. Please keep in mind that your physical eyes are also an extension of your brain. They're not separate from your brain. They are an extension squeezed out of holes from your skull, but they are part of your brain all the same. Now, the pineal gland does not have any holes squeezed out of. Where it's squeezed out of, it instead is embedded inside. And it's considered whole because it is non-hemispherical, whereas you have two physical eyes. They are separated by the hemispheres of your brain as far as their signal. The pineal gland is a unified signal that is non-hemispherical, and it is the shape of a pine cone, albeit very small, in your brain. Over time, through exposure to fluoride, it calcifies. So if you're having fluoridated mouthwash, if you're ingesting fluoridated toothpaste or dental floss, or if you're drinking water from the tap, unless there are restrictions in town saying this cannot be here, you likely are consuming way too much fluoride. If you're eating any sort of iodized salt, read the back. In most instances, there is fluoride added, and there's a number of speculated reasons for this. I won't go into them so much because people have had me banned for it. Assholes, trespassing, but all the same, done it. But I will tell you, if you research pineal gland calcification and fluoridation of water, World War II, concentration camps, and behavioral change, you may find some interesting data. I can tell you one thing, that data was shared with the United States by the Nazi regime following their amnesty given in exchange for data that they collected when they used fluoride in water tables at specific areas, i.e. concentration camps during World War II. And what this does, as your pineal gland becomes calcified and less flexible, light does not enter in the same way that it did before. That's the simplest way to explain it to you. It becomes a hardened calcite underbelly that refracts light in a way that disturbs your production of melatonin, serotonin, anandamide, and dimethyltryptamine, which gives you your imagination perspective. So the perspective of God's mind is given to you by the spirit molecule that is dimethyltryptamine. So consciousness, as far as you experiencing it in your vessel, is powered by the pineal gland through DMT. And when your pineal gland is calcified, that DMT becomes very distorted, and the feelings that are generated in the body are usually typically those of avoidance to make any decisions, do anything, unless you are physically herded, HERDED, to do it. And that has great implications when it comes to a society that wishes to control you. It was in 1947 that fluoride started to be introduced to the water tables in the United States. Not a coincidence that that came shortly after the Nuremberg trials and all of the data being studied. So you can make decisions for yourself as to what that really means. Personally, the question coming from Tyler is, how do we decalcify the pineal gland? Start with a fresh source of spring water. Go to www.findaspring.org and research where your local spring is. Most cases you'll have the water is measured for parts per minute and total bacteria and impurities about every 3 to 6 months. In most instances, the source is free. If anything, you're paying 25 cents for a 5-gallon container fill, which is basically nothing. You're going to want to drink that water because it's filled with micronutrients that you're not getting from filtered water. And at the same time, you're not consuming all the fluoride that is being dumped into your water table, which is about to be eliminated, by the way, by the Secretary of Health. Secretary RFK Jr. is hell-bent on getting all fluoride removed from our water tables, knowing that it's probably not just a conspiracy, that it would have an impact on the body negatively. So you can start by drinking spring water, and then you can start by changing your product of consumption for the cleaning of your mouth. And you can start breathing through the nose instead of through the mouth so that the biome becomes stable in the mouth and no longer festers. Start to reduce your sugar intake so that it doesn't feed any cancerous cells that would wish to take over your body, because sugar is total venom for your body unless you're consuming it through natural means, fruits, vegetables, foods, but you're not eating the granulated version or drinking it. At the same time, I would suggest check out some of the posts on my profile that have to do with an Ayurvedic herb called neem, N-E-E-M, and you do not want to have this unless you are 18 plus, because it will have an impact on your hormones. If you are a child, it is not good for you. But if you are an adult, it has no known contraindications and is Ayurvedic. It's been used for thousands of years, and it has a number of properties that are very beneficial for your body, including decalcifying your pineal gland. You could also look into Shilajit, and if you're going to buy it, get gold Himalayan Shilajit resin. That is about to be posted, but you can find it on TikTok. It's about to be posted on my channel within the next day or so. You will find that most of the products that I am talking about, I take my time talking about them, and I go as far as I can to explain the benefits without being banned by pharmaceutical companies or special interests that would want to see me eliminated from this talk, understanding that it would put them out of business if people started to become healthy through my suggestion. I don't claim to be the answer to your prayers in any instance whatsoever, but I can tell you what's worked for me. And I haven't seen a primary care doctor in over a decade, and I'm the healthiest I've ever been. But that's just me. That's just my life experience. That's just how I entertain God as a being. So that's how you would decalcify your pineal gland in the beginning. And then you want lots of sunlight. And I mean loads of it. At least 15 to 30 minutes unfiltered sunlight every single day. And when you know your pineal gland is becoming decalcified in truth, because I won't tell you to use borax because I can't, you will find that the sunlight coming in will start to create a phosphenes effect, fractal imagery, blending with your cerebrospinal fluid. The slight turning inward of your eyes while closed creates a piezo or piezoelectric effect of mechanical stress on the lower calcite crystals of your pineal gland and secrete a beautiful form of milk and honey. and it starts to regenerate areas of the body that would be considered dormant. Thus, you can come into the woods, have beautiful conversations like this, and not think twice about the words. You can do the same thing with your painting, with your music, with your writing, with your expression of love to your partner, with your confidence in negotiations, with all things success. They just come to you because you're becoming alive again. So Rebella gives some nice advice here. It says, Elam's is a great fluoride-free toothpaste that heals your teeth. Also, coconut oil pulling helps. I've heard that too. That's great advice, Rebella. Thank you. Folks, you'll also notice on my profile that there is neem toothpaste that has baking soda, it has jojoba oil, it has peppermint and clary sage, I think, and clove. These are all great for your mouth health. You can even use sage from the garden to massage your gums. You can massage your gums with it. And also, you want to look into magnesium glycinate, because it's really interesting to look into. And you may also want to look into black pepper, turmeric, ginger, garlic. What else? Cilantro, moringa, oleifera. You'll have this all in the recording so you can look into it, okay? And boy, I love borax because of its cleaning properties. It's really good at cleaning things, especially heavy metals. Really good at scrubbing them clean. Borax comes from it's a salt that comes from an area of Death Valley. Yeah. Fatima asks, how do you take borax? Well, Fatima, I wouldn't do that if I were you, because borax is considered to be just for external use only. But I have heard people talk about it in other ways. Like Matt from Cultivate Elevate has some really nice information on borax. But I can't talk about this here because it's just a detergent cleaner. That which helps with cleaning things. Like cleavage sites and otherwise spike proteins that might have been introduced to the body through strange situations of introducing them to the body. Such strange things have happened in the last few years. But what would I know? I'm just having a life experience. Just a guy walking in the woods having a life experience. That's all I'm doing. Just having fun. Let's leap across. You ready? We did it. We made it. I'm serious, we made it. We made it all the way. Siamese says, I take boron every day. I can't recommend that, you know? I'm sure you understand what I'm saying to you, Siamese, when I say I can't recommend that. Siamese understands. Because Siamese, I have a feeling that you have a very flexible pineal gland from just taking care of yourself, right? I'm sure you have a really good, very flexible pineal gland. It's probably very decalcified because you take care of yourself with the things that you ingest, you know? Jeanette asks, boron is the same as borax, or no? It's a nice. Majestic Rose says, Fatima's pointing at me, teeth are so jacked up now, even my baby tooth had fallen out to get the adult pulled down. Cass is reading between the lines. Thanks, Fatima, for understanding. Andy says, 20 Mule Team Borax. Now, I got to tell you, this is a very pure form of borax that is extracted directly from the mines of Death Valley, California, and has been for over 100 years. And I find it's very good at cleaning things. Like I've never seen my glasses sparkle so much as when I'm using borax for cleaning them. All of the grease and all of the grime just seems to come right off. As if something was trying to hold on. It's no longer there. You know? I guess the best way I can compare it is like, imagine if you had like spike proteins in your body. I mean, for some strange reason, you know? It's like, imagine if they were stuck to a glass, right? And the only way you could get those spike proteins off the glass was if you scrubbed them with this cleaner. And it somehow miraculously worked, you know? It's a miraculous way. It's very alkali. Have you ever heard about what things that are alkali do for the body? Well, I'll tell you what things that are acid do for the body. Things that are very acid for the body, they're the perfect breeding ground for disease, inflammation, and otherwise decline of cell structures. Unless they're cancer, then they thrive really well in very acid-based areas. But when you have the opposite of that, with things that are alkali, they tend to have very good curing and purative effects on the body, purifying. That comes when things are alkali. Last time I checked, I think borax is like 9 on the pH. Very, very alkali. But that's just chemistry. It's also just a life situation that I'm talking about, folks. I'm just telling you things, you know, to tell you. Bizarre. Thanks for following. Be boldly love light says, the next spike attachment is underway by the evildoers. That's a hell of a narrative. I'm at 20% battery. 7.3 pH is a life-changing for better level. Sabrina, thanks for following. Bizarre says, thank you for being here. I'm more than happy to be here, and thank you for saying that. Aluminum-free baking soda and water. Heard it's good. How much borax do you use for your glasses? Siamese, thanks for following. A tiny amount of water turns it to 8 pH instantly. Okay. These are good things to hear. So what you could also get is a nice pH meter. They sell them at brewing stores, but you can get them online now. It tells you the total dissolved solids, or TDS, was basically telling you the amount of salts that are in your water. And borax is just another form of salt, much like baking soda. It's alkali. So you can put that nice pH meter in the water, and you can find out all the things about it with its total dissolved solids and what its pH is. And then you can try to calculate how much water that is being ingested, what you can imagine happening, not to your blood, because your blood has an amazing barrier system that keeps it constant, but you can see how it will affect the rest of the body, which is really fun. It's great fun learning about chemistry and brewing and how alkali things are really good for your health. And hydration's really important when you have it from a source that's local. And when you eliminate fluoride from your diet, it's really helpful because it's a neurotoxin. Probably at 18% battery right now. Be Boldly Love Light says, recipe for borax, which is not mine, by the way. I'm not saying this is my recipe, is 1 tablespoon per liter dissolved into 6 ounces daily. That is not my recommendation. I can't recommend the ingestion of boric acid, boron, or otherwise known as however many mule borax extracted from the earth naturally. I can't recommend that. Did you know that borax is directly tied to the planet Saturn, which has to do with time and harvest? It also has to do with karma. That's just a fun fact. You can keep borax around in your house, and not only will it clean your glassware, but it will make your clothing really, really clean. In fact, some people use it as an insecticide. If you combined it with some sugar and water in equal parts, you could place it in your living room in select areas where ants are coming, and they'll have a feast on it for about 3 days. And then they'll bring it to their queen deep down in the alcoves of their den, and the queen's going to feast on it too. And then she'll have a really nice time for about 2 more days until her stomach implodes. And then the entire colony will die. You could also put borax in areas where there might be cockroaches, and they'll run along and they'll get it in their feetsies, their footsies, and then they'll try to scrape it off and they'll get it in their mouth, and then their stomachs will blow up too. I've used it in the past for insects too. It works amazingly. It works great with ants. Works even better with cockroaches. You gotta understand, when I lived in Mexico City, there were lots of ants and lots of cockroaches. And if I took equal parts borax and sugar and mixed it into water and put it at the source areas where they were coming in, they would have a feast on it, and then they would all die. And after they died, they never came in. They never set foot in my space of living again. They learned the hard way. Never again. That's the stuff that you get in the ant traps anyway. But that's stuff with like insecticide added to it. Probably there's some neem thrown in there too if they wanted to do it organically. But the bottom line is this, folks. It's just a narrative, right? It's just a narrative. Exactly, Majestic Rose. We are talking about people who are potentially consuming these things, which in large amounts could probably be very detrimental. I don't know. But you know, the way it works is a little bit of something too can also be quite therapeutic. Just a tiny bit of something, in some instances, can actually be quite therapeutic. It's called homeopathy. So the homeopathic medicine is introducing something that would be devastating for a smaller organism, but ends up being something very beneficial. Like, you know how alcohol is poison? I mean, alcohol is so poisonous that if you drink an ounce of hard liquor, the body immediately shuts down just about every other process it needs to keep running in order to get that out of the body. To give you an example, you could have a certain medicinal plant that stores itself in your fat and happens to bind to the CB1 and CB2 receptors of the endocannabinoid system. That plant stays in our fat cells for like 30 to 60 days. Whereas alcohol, because it is so toxic, after consuming a single ounce, it's out of the body entirely within an hour. 1 hour. So, it's also known that if you have a nice glass of wine or perhaps a little, cocktail from time to time, it helps to relax the nerves and might actually be beneficial for a number of reasons. But by having too much of it, one can develop a dependency, and of course it can be toxic, and possibly lead to cirrhosis of the liver and even death. But that's in very large amounts, repeatedly. So, the fact that one thing takes about a month to 2 months to get out of the body, stores itself in fat, is usually indicative that there's a system that benefits from it, and it would rather not let it go. Even if it's demonized, even if it's propagandized. Certain plants that relate to the system that I mentioned to you might actually be of benefit. And actually, I can't recall a single person ever overdosing on constant pinning of the endocannabinoid receptors, CB1 and CB2. And so, to take this further with the Tiny Diny, Majestic Rose says, I still don't understand how you can walk this while talking without dying for breath. Yeah, practice. I've been recording in the woods for a few years now while walking. Breathing consciously. I also do it in the freezing cold, sub-degree temperatures for hours. People have seen that. No frostbite, no death. Just ego death, but no other death. So what's really wild about the CB1 and CB2 receptors, the largest concentration of human-created endocannabinoids that are synthesized by the body are found in very large concentrations in two areas that are quite revealing scientifically. One being the placenta has the largest amount of endocannabinoids in any form of the human body. It exists in the placenta. And then the second largest concentration is in the colostrum and then mother's milk. So why would it be that a plant, which if you removed its acid extension, creates something that binds to the CB1 and CB2 receptors, is actually something that is considered bad, dangerous, and should be banned when it does lead to a feeling of release of pain and relief from it, the forgetfulness of life situations that are otherwise traumatic, i.e. birth, and growth through growing pains, that such a plant that reacts in the same exact way as anandamide, which is naturally synthesized by the body, would be demonized and made illegal and not offered to people for therapeutic reasons. Not to mention, it serves as a great fuel source, and also its non-psychoactive components can be used for the creation of hemp, for clothing, textiles, like I said, fuel. And you don't have to take anything from fossil fuels. Not at all. It grows within 3 months to full maturity. You harvest, you keep some seeds, and on it goes. Why would that be demonized? Why would it be shut down? Gets me thinking. While alcohol, which the body wants to get rid of immediately because it is unbelievably dehydrating, toxic, and poisonous, would be promoted on commercials, billboards, found in every convenience mart that would allow it, all around, for its immediate access and consumption. We don't talk about how it's poison so much as we talk about how much of it we're bringing to our friends and family during gatherings for its consumption and enjoyment. How many brewskis are you bringing? How many bottles are you getting? What's the total amount of milligrams that I should be taking? What's the total dosage amount? I just want to be sure before I go ahead and consume this poison. And so, once again, we come to this conclusion that what we find in largest concentration, naturally observing it occurring in the body, typically has a system designed for it to be consumed. And the hemp plant is a plant that has evolved with us for thousands of years. It has diversified incredibly. It is found to be grown in all areas around the world, regardless of altitude or sea level growth. Its expressions vary quite a bit. Its concentrations of what would be considered psychoactive medication has varied quite a bit. But the bottom line is, it's found everywhere, all around, and I'm running out of battery. Folks, I want this video to be saved. I don't want to lose it, so it means I'm going to have to end this stream. I love you all very much. I want to thank you for tuning in today. I wish I didn't have to cut this short, but I do know the battery is going to die, and if it does, we lose the chat from today's recording, and that would be devastating for us, wouldn't it? So I just want to say I love you all. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, please follow up in the comments on YouTube. This video will be found there tonight, as well as previous recordings. At the same time, my only ask is that you please do look at some of the products that I'm promoting that have to do with the conversation topics today. They include kava with kavalic tones. They include neem with its Ayurvedic properties. Also look into oil of oregano, which you'll find deep down in my profile. I have to do another post on it. But there are a number of other herbs you can look into. And if you're looking into hair growth, as I'm working on right now, you can look at neem and castor oil, rosemary, a bunch of things. Just know that a lot of the things that I put there are for your benefit. Actually, all of them are for your benefit, and I explain what those are, but they vary as far as their effects, okay? Stephanie says, kava is great, thank you. Black seed oil as well is there, you'll find it. Yep, that's also in the toothpaste with neem. Thank you very much for saying these things. You all have beautiful days. Be Boldly says, thank you, I DM'd you. What's your YouTube channel? It's in my bio. So if you go into my bio, folks, you will see my link to YouTube. I have 970 followers, so 30 to go until we can monetize with 1,000 followers. That would be great. If we can get another 30, that would really make my day. All right? Much love to you all. Thank you for listening to me. And when I get sarcastic at times, or if I'm giving hint stuff, it's just to play around. We're all just playing. But at the end of the day, please know that I recognize you as consciousness, the aliveness that is flowing through me in all things as your truth, that you are to live a wish-fulfilled life. That is my prayer for you, however you see fit. It's your kingdom to use as if it is yours. Give it your daily footprint. Go there, live there, be there, feel good, feel great. Thank you, Cass, for the hand hearts. Thank you for all the gifts. Thank you for the love that's come in today. We're over 30,000 feet above sea level. It's amazing. And all the people that came in, I love you all. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Cass. Thank you, 444 Metadon. Thank you, all of you who have come here today. Followers that came in today, I love you all. Thank you so much. I'm now tuning off so I can save this video. Thank you and be well. I'll see you tomorrow sometime around 1 o'clock Eastern. I love you all.